Thank you, Dennis, for inviting me. This is my first time here, but actually I have heard about this conference. And some of my colleagues have attended it in the previous years, so I know how valuable it is. I'm Arijana, I come from North Macedonia, but actually I have a business in Kosovo as well. Maybe you have heard about it. Creative Hub, we are a non-formal training education center. And actually the reason why Dennis asked me to share this story today on how we can motivate the Generation Z and the millennial generation was just because I work with students 24/7, 7 days a week, trying to help them to achieve goals and to achieve their career. I hope that in my presentation you will find the value. When I was making the presentation, I was thinking about like how would be the best way, and I started assessing myself first as a former employee, then as employer, and then with a person that works on day-to-day basis with young people who want to exceed and succeed in their job. So I will start with my presentation now. Doesn't work? Okay, so yes, thinking about what motivates us without thinking any further of, regardless of our age or religion or anything. Here we have Maslow's pyramid. I don't know if you've heard about, I'm sure you've heard about Abraham Maslow. He developed this pyramid in 1943 because he wanted to find what is the purpose of living for people. So at the bottom, you know, it's our physiological needs, and then we have the safety needs. And as you can see, I have actually put directions and have connected this one with the boomer generation and the Generation X. So these two generations are actually post-war generations. So when they were looking in a job is a safety. But that's not the case now, because the generation of millennials and the generation of Gen Z, or the people born from 1997 until today, we have not experienced war. We don't know how it is, Second World War. We have not experienced this fear of safety. So for us, probably what drives us is our self-actualization, to find and to become the best version what we can be of ourselves. So this is actually an interesting story because 4 years ago, when I came back to the Balkans, previously I was living in Shanghai and in Monaco, I was working for one corporate company. And when I decided to become an entrepreneur, obviously at first I was unemployed because I was just starting a company. And one day my mom calls me and she's like, you know what, we think you should join a political party. And I was like, why? She's like, you are unemployed. They'll help you, get some job in the government. So this is actually the example with safety, because what my mom was thinking, she didn't see that I just quit a big corporate job to open a business. She saw it like, oh, my daughter is again unemployed, and there is no safety. So Maslow's pyramid is a very good example of what actually us as different generations are looking for when we think of our career and our success. Next. Okay. Another thing that I would say that is the lack of education, because if you take the time of the boomers, if you take the time of the Generation X, let's be honest, there was no education like now. There was nobody to guide you, to show you, to come to trainings like this so you can learn and become successful. There was a lack of media influence and lack of social media. So on these pictures here, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but actually it shows that the new generation, or the Generation Z and millennials, we spend our time, the most influential factor to us is the online videos. Whether if you see the other generations, it's still the radio and the TV. I don't have TV at home. Actually, I have two, but I never use it. And even if I watch Netflix, I do it on my laptop. So TV and TV commercials cannot influence me as a millennial. However, on the other hand, the generations of my parents and before are highly influenced even today. So this brings us to the next slide. So what are we exposed to today? We live in an age where on Instagram every day you can see how to become a millionaire, billionaire. We see Jack Ma, he was 10 times rejected from Howard. On 35 years old, he was making $20 a month, and then he became billionaire. We have Jeff Bezos, who actually quit his job on 30 and started Amazon. But we also, the new generations are influenced with self-made millionaires or billionaires, like Kylie Jenner, who just spent the entire day on Instagram, then decided to produce some lipsticks, and then, have this tremendous success. So in order to understand what motivates the new generation, you should also understand who influences them. So on one side, they have all possible education, all possible success stories, but they're also exposed to see the fast success. So something that you can see overnight. However, I don't think there is a success overnight. I think it takes a lot of years in behind. I was looking at what is the Gen Z motto. Actually, this is my motto as well. So the Gen Z motto is work to live, not live to work, unlike the other generations before. So I was thinking, how do we motivate them, but also how do we teach them to take responsibility? Because one thing is motivation, but motivation keeps you for 5 seconds. After that, as employer, I'm looking for my employees to take responsibility. I'm looking for my employees to bring me results. Because as Dennis said at the beginning, new income is how we measure the success of our company. So if my employees do not understand the way of responsibility and performance, then obviously I would replace them as employer. I'm sure all of you here that have your own companies, you would do the same. But I find one model basically that we have used, and I know that a lot of the companies that we collaborate use. So first one would be to create a great onboarding process, which means that when a new person joins the company, you give them a clear job description. Okay, everybody will say we give job description to everybody. Okay, now the next thing is a clear defined career, or I also call it growth path. So if a person is here joining as HR analyst, this person has to know what this person has to do in order to become an HR manager or chief HR officer in future. So you cannot motivate someone just by giving them the job description today, because obviously today it's just starting, just the beginning of the career, and probably they would not be motivated by 300-400 euros, but they would be motivated by the bigger picture of what they can achieve if they perform. Next thing is clear defined goals, and goals have to be SMART, which means zero tolerance if you do this and this. You have to complete this task within 72 hours. The revenue for the first quarter is this and this amount. So everything should be measurable. Cannot be just like, let's make some money or let's contribute to the company's revenue initiative. So the people have to have clear goals that can be measured. And then we can sit together after 90 days or 3 months and say, listen, did you agree when you come on this job description and these goals? Yes. Now let's measure how much you have achieved. The next thing brings us to performance management process. It's very important. Every single person, regardless whether it's back of the house, front of the house, should have KPIs. These are 3 to 5 goals which can be measured. I know that as Balkan countries, we do not have a very developed performance management system because we come from socialism. We are not used to be measured on the performance that we do and then get promoted because of our performance. But as the times comes and as we see everything from the Western world, you can see that these companies are so successful because they have actually developed a very good performance management process and are able to measure if this employee is brings quality results or not. And the last one would be a clear defined training plan, because you cannot just grow just because gaining of experience. Obviously, people should be prepared. They should the company should invest in their training, but not only training of the skills. I have also put here focus training and meditation, because today, in the world that we live in, we are constantly obsessed, especially the new generations, with smartphones. And this often contributes to lack of focus of this new generation on work. We want them to perform, but they don't have the focus. So obviously, these two don't go together. Which brings me to my next slide, which I think is, do you remember a life without smartphone? I know I do, because I was born before. But you have to understand that the new generation does not, because they were born in the time of smartphones. So, sorry, I would just go back to the previous slide. Okay, so mindfulness, as I mentioned it, why it's important. Mindfulness is important because, first of all, the generation that bring this focus training and this meditation is my generation. It's the millennials, because we use it because it will give us more energy and it will make us more successful on work. We didn't invent it, but it was invented way before us, and our generation before us used it just because of the sake of it, but we use it for business. Now, what companies started doing, actually, like Google and Goldman Sachs, which when I was doing the research for the presentation, I found this. They started having these trainings inside the company, like Search Inside Yourself course, which has Google, to help people relate with each other. Because Google is obviously a developers company, and developers, as you know, they don't really communicate. They're more of introvert people. So Google developed this program in order to help them relate. Now, it was a very interesting story that I heard about Goldman Sachs, which is one of the most successful financial institutions in the world. The 22-year-old investment banker who just started the company killed himself because he could not take the stress on work. So, you know, working with money and investments is not always easy. It's very stressful. So after that, Goldman Sachs actually introduced the resilience training in order to help young generations to teach them that, you know, stress is something that should be worked on and overcome in a way to, you know, to build resilience. So this is why I said this at the first place. We are working with a generation that has only been brought, when they were brought to the world, they started with smartphones. And they feel a pressure that probably a lot of us, we cannot really relate to it because we don't have that pressure. But we have to understand them in order to help them overcome that and in order to help them succeed, because it's our duty, right? To take care of our employees. So I would say that growing is a process. You should all think of yourself like when you were starting your career, when you were at the entry level, were you at your best performance? Probably not, because I know I wasn't. I was always trying to get some shortcuts because I thought I'm too smart for this, so I just finished the job. But I think I want to say this because as entrepreneurs, we always, you know, want people to achieve results, but we have to understand we are on a different level, and probably we are doing things more different than someone that's just 22 and that just started working. So we have to actually give them time to develop the self-discipline and, of course, guide them to it. Okay, so the next thing, actually, I was thinking what would be the best way to continue with this presentation, and I said, why don't I just show you how we're doing it in Creative Hub, because every day we're meeting young people and we are doing all the time career coaching presentations for Gen Z. So through my presentation, which we're doing it on day-to-day basis with young people, I hope that you can probably see the example and maybe understand it on the best way. So when somebody would come to Creative Hub or to career coaching, I always start with one question. I say, okay, what day is today? And they say it's October 23rd, 2021. I say, okay, so 5 years from now will be October 23rd, 2026. And where are you going to be at that time? Can you like go to the next slide? Okay, so the next question after the 5 years would be, where do you see yourself in 10 years? So again, October 23rd, 2031, where are you going to be yourself in the next 10 years? And then, are you going to be happier? Are you going to be professionally fulfilled? Are you going to be having a thriving career? Think about it, like where are you going to be in 5 and 10 years? So now let's go back to the beginning. The next thing is to think about the goals. Go to the next slide. So think about what your goals are and write them. I always ask them to write. Next slide. So how to determine what's a goal? I always say you have to do two things. You have to ask yourself, how much money do you want to make? And the second thing is, what is the highest position that you want to work? So let's say you're working in marketing. What do you want to be? Do you want to own your own agency? Do you want to be a creative director of some of the large agencies? Do you want to be a chief marketing officer in a startup, raising millions, be part of a unicorn, then sell the company, have some equity? Like, what do you want? How much do you want to earn? And what position do you want to work in? And what this should actually be a way to determine your goals. Next slide. So here actually, because this is one sample that I took it from HR position and I show it to the people when they come to join our HR Academy. I always say, so when you finish, you will start working as HR assistant, probably HR intern or HR trainee, but see all the way up, as this conference starts with all the way up. So you can end up with chief HR operations officer. And if you work for a corporate company, a Western one, you can make up to $500,000 a year. This is not imaginary, this is real numbers. But again, depends, where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? Of course, you can also keep yourself at the manager position and just be satisfied with some annual income much less than what an HR official would make. So it depends how much you want to perform, how much time you want to invest in your training, and how much focus you want to put into this thing that you're doing. So have you guys ever searched what a job description would be like? So now we said, okay, I know what I want to be. I want to be on the top. So, okay, what do I need to know in order to be on top? So it's very important. We always take one, this is one job description that I find for HR human resources manager. And all the things that are listed here that an HR manager should know, I connected them with the subjects of our academy. This is not a marketing of my academy. It's just a way to show you that when you decide how much you want to earn and what your position should be like, then next you should look for a job description. Okay, what should I know in order to reach here? And then work on the skills, get the skills that tomorrow when you would go to interview for this position, you would be able to say, I'm confident, I know this and this and this and this and this, give me task, I can do everything. I'm 100% sure. Not just go on interview and see, I don't know what they're gonna ask me. So next slide. So now you're ready to start. There are three things that we always say to every single person who wants to do career coaching. The first step is to get the skills. So as a hub, we actually have 4 years experience. In Pristina, we are 2 years. In Macedonia, we are 4 years. And this is always what we say to the students, the secret of success. And I'm sure that a lot of you have heard about the book, The Secret. So the first thing and the thing that basically it's the most important is the thoughts. So if you think that you can be, then probably you will become. So if you can imagine yourself as a chief HR officer, then you will become. If you cannot imagine yourself, if you think that's too far, that's impossible, then probably will be impossible. So now I'm going to go into some of the things. So we always tell the students, when you come, you have to be prepared. So it's not only to come to take the training, you have to do the research before the training. This is not only applicable for my company, it's applicable for any training. You have to do research so you're prepared when you come, whether it's a sales training or whatever training, you have to know in order to be prepared so that you can actively participate. The next is actually to actively participate. Not to be a passive listener, but to ask questions and engage discussions. But if you're not prepared for the training in advance, how are you going to ask questions? You will just listen and you will say, oh, this guy is a guru, this is great, this is great. But you know, you will not get the maximum of this training. So I always say, do your homework and get prepared before you start with the training. Then it's also read Harvard case studies. There are a lot of case studies from top companies. I'm not sure if you remember, but you were at university. If some of you finish economics, that they always teach us all the stories of Coca-Cola and the success of Coca-Cola and, you know, how these companies and General Electric and General Motors. And actually, we didn't learn anything that would help us to find a job immediately after university, because you will never be a CEO of Coca-Cola, obviously, immediately. But we were always going to see through the strategy. So, okay, this is a good strategy. This is, and innovation comes from the large companies. When you read Harvard case studies on large companies, you can actually get ideas. And these ideas, in a way, you can implement in your company, regardless of what the company is. The next is put your knowledge in practice, participate in real projects, and add them to the CV. So this is what we say to the young people. I'm doing this presentation so you know how to give guidance to somebody that's 20-year-old and that will start work in your company. So you have to ask these people to do as much as they can, like give them tasks, give them small projects. It's important to be real. It's important that they practice. It's important that they feel that they're doing something, that they're not just like standing there and bringing coffee or just doing some easy tasks. When my brother is my co-founder, actually, his first job was, he was intern in a bank in Macedonia. And the third day he quit. He comes home and he's like, I don't want to go to this bank anymore. And my mom is like crying. And she's like asking him why. He's like, but every day they ask me to go buy burek and coffee. I don't want to do this anymore. So this bank, unfortunately, as institutions, they were too corporate. They cannot find a way how to manage and how to give guidance to the young people. And this is why they lose them. But when you give them some time, and when you dedicate time and you give them guidance and you tell them what to do, then these people will work for you. Because you all know here, people can work for you because they want to, or they can work for money. If they work for money, they will probably quit after some time when somebody will offer them more. But if they work for you because they like you, and liking is not, I like you because you're beautiful. Liking is because you're doing something for me. You're taking from your time and you're giving to me something to make me better, then these people for sure will stay and work for you for a long period of time. So the second thing, or the second step that we say to the young people, is to do networking. Join HR communities, join Facebook groups. Now, why I put this here? Because remember, we're talking to a generation that was born on the internet. So if I just write to them, attend HR seminars, probably they would not connect to it. But when you give them guidance to connect something with something on their level, then obviously it is easier for them to consume it and to understand it. Participate in events, meet people, share experiences, share business cards, do pitches. It's thing that we're trying to help them practice, because tomorrow they'll be part of my company, and when they go, they will be brand ambassador. Doesn't matter if they're intern or if they're entry level, or if they're senior, they're still brand ambassador, because they'll ask them, where do you work? Or I work here. So I would like these people to know what they're talking about. HR meetups, HR hiking trips, very important part. I put this here because young people want to be part of a community. They want to feel that they're contributing to something. They want to feel not only that they go to work, but they are part of the community, and that this community is doing something good for the society. I have employees who actually, from my 25 and 23-year-old employees, come the ideas, let's clean the area, or let's contribute, let's donate something. So these people want to basically support communities and be part of it. So this is the way that you should speak to them. Third step is to work on your CV. You have to talk to them on their language, because they are born with Kim Kardashian. So selfie is not a professional photo. A lot of young people have problem into understanding what professional is. I always tell them, if you're not sure what to put on your CV, ask for professional help. We don't expect you to be born with knowledge. Put only relevant to the job experience. If you were waiting tables this summer in KFC, that's great, but that's not relevant to the job experience. You have to put something relevant. But I always tell them, even if you don't, this is one example that I put of one student that had zero experience, but she had participated in 3 real projects. So these 3 real projects were connected with her work. This is more valuable than her just writing, I was working in KFC this summer at the cash register. I tell them, even if you have no experience, do not be afraid, because you're doing something for yourself, and that's very meaningful. You're part of some program, you're part of some training. You know, that's something that probably 99% of the people around you are not doing. So this is something that I start with: prepare and be ready when you go to this interview to apply for your for the position that you're preferring. So you have to be 100% sure. I know this and this and this and this and this. And this is what actually you should show to the table. And this is what I want the people that come of my company, of my academy, to be 100% sure. I know how to do it. I always say, if you're not sure, come take the academy one more time for free. It's on me. Join international hiring platforms. Now, remote is a new way of working for a lot of millennials. And I think it's also benefit. It also helps them to explore opportunities, because many of them want just to be working from home or want to work remotely from another country. Can we go to next slide? So is it possible? Yes, of course. Can you do it in less than 5 years from now? Whatever your goal you say for yourself? Absolutely yes. This is one example from one girl that just graduated the academy, so 2 years, and now she started working for this, I'm sure you know, Kina Nagel. It's one of the largest logistics companies. And then in 2 years, she did so much, she performed so well, and now she actually moved to Berlin, to Germany, to work as regional talent acquisition specialist, which is a very important thing, because they would obviously need to sponsor her visa, and to, you know, if she's not good, then they would not do it. And of course, at the end, you're the only one that can do it. Remember, first step is your thoughts, second is your actions. This is the end of my presentation, but actually I wanted to finish with something to say. What I just showed you was a way how I give guidance to young people. If you do the same, people will work for you, because they see the effort that you put. They will see that you really sincerely want to help them grow. If they don't see that, probably they would not perform. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.